It's always a strange feeling when someone whose face has been part of movies, shows, and entire childhood suddenly becomes a headline for a reason no one wanted to read. This morning, fans around the world woke up to the news that Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa, one of the most recognizable character actors of the last 4 decades, had passed away at 75. His family confirmed he died early Thursday in Santa Barbara due to complications from a stroke. He was surrounded by his children. If you're part of the generation that grew up with the Mortal Kombat movies, you don't need anyone to remind you who Tagawa was. He didn't just play Shang Tsung, he defined him. The sorcerer, the voice, the iconic, "Your soul is mine." Even people who never watched the films know that line. For many, Tagawa wasn't just an actor. He was a symbol of what a great villain could look and sound like. But his life story was bigger than any one role. Tagawa was born in Tokyo and moved to the United States when he was still a child. He talked often about how tough it was growing up Japanese in the American South during the 1950s and how martial arts became both discipline and escape. He learned Kendo early, then deepened his training at USC and later in Japan under a legendary master. He eventually created his own system, Chunshin, which focused on energy rather than fighting. That philosophy stayed with him his entire life. Before Hollywood knew his name, he had tiny roles, including an uncredited part in Big Trouble in Little China. No one watching that movie back then could have guessed that the quiet young man in the background would soon appear in more than 150 films, series, and video games. His breakout came in 1987 with The Last Emperor, an Oscar-winning epic where he played Chong, the Emperor's driver. It wasn't a huge role, but it was enough to show casting directors that he brought something different, a calm intensity, a presence that settled into a scene even when he hardly spoke. That presence became his signature. From there, Tagawa moved through an incredible mix of roles. License to Kill, Rising Sunday, Snow Falling on Cedars, Pearl Harbor, Planet of the Apes, Memoirs of a Geisha, 47 Ronin, Elektra. Some roles were big, some small, but he was always memorable. Directors like Tim Burton, Michael Bay, Rob Marshall, Philip Kaufman, and John Carpenter all worked with him, each using his ability to project both strength and vulnerability. But nothing matched the explosion of popularity he found with the Mortal Kombat franchise. Tagawa first played Shang Tsung in 1995, when video game movies were still considered experimental. Fans expected a cheesy adaptation. What they got instead was a performance so sharp and theatrical that it anchored the film and helped push it past $100 million at the box office. He returned for Mortal Kombat, Annihilation, then came back again for the web series Mortal Kombat, Legacy. Even decades later, when Mortal Kombat 11 came out, the developers brought him back to voice the character and even use his likeness, giving a whole new generation the same villain older fans grew up fearing. He later said the timing was perfect. Mortal Kombat was at the peak of its power in video game culture, and the movie helped expand that world. And he always gave credit to director Paul W.S. Anderson for choosing intense, high-energy music that changed the way martial arts movies were edited. Tagawa also stepped into another iconic video game universe when he played Heihachi Mishima in Tekken. Even though that film didn't find the same success, fans always remembered the way he carried the character's cold, steel-like authority. And in voice acting, he appeared in everything from World of Warcraft, Legion to Batman, Rise of Shang Tsung. But one of the most layered, thoughtful performances of his career came much later, in Amazon's The Man in the High Castle. As Trade Minister Tagomi, he brought quiet tension, dignity, and emotional truth to a character navigating a fractured world. Tagawa said he connected deeply with Tagomi because he understood what it meant to live between cultures, to carry the weight of history, and to try to push for peace even when no one around you cares for it. That role earned him a wave of new fans who had never seen his earlier martial arts performances. It also showed a side of him that Hollywood rarely allowed Asian actors to explore, gentle, introspective, morally torn. Throughout his life, Tagawa pushed against the stereotypes that shaped Asian characters in Western cinema. Some roles fell into those old patterns, but he always tried to find humanity inside them. Even when he played villains, there was a depth behind the menace, as if the character had lived an entire life before arriving on screen. Beyond film and television, he lived a grounded life on Kauai, where he and his wife Sally raised their 2 children. He practiced and taught Chunshin, traveled often between Japan and the US, and stayed connected with fans who considered him legendary long before the word became overused. Tagawa wasn't the kind of actor who chased headlines. He didn't dominate award shows or tabloids. Instead, he worked steadily, consistently across 4 decades. If you needed someone who carried wisdom, danger, mystery, discipline, or stillness, you called him, and he always delivered. It's rare to find an actor who can be terrifying, elegant, gentle, and commanding all at once. Tagawa was one of those rare performers who could step into a room, say almost nothing, and still control the entire scene. That's why his death hits so many people from so many different corners of entertainment. Gamers, movie fans, martial artists, sci-fi lovers, Asian American communities, and actors who followed in his footsteps. All of them felt his impact. He leaves behind his 3 children, Kaylin, Bryn, and Kana, along with 2 grandchildren, River and Thea Clayton. And he leaves behind a legacy that spans continents, genres, and generations. For some people, his face will always be Shang Tsung. For others, it will be Tagomi. For others, Chang from The Last Emperor. But for everyone who watched him work, he will always be the actor who made every role feel bigger than it was on paper. Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa spent 40 years bringing unforgettable characters to life. Today, fans around the world are remembering the man behind them, the discipline, the depth, the quiet strength, and the passion that shaped his career. For more breaking updates, remember to follow Xplained daily. Which role of Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa stands out the most to you?